What if the greatest treasure in life isn't found in what you hold but in what holds you? Journey with Aaron, a young shepherd bound by a mysterious rope that stretches to the heavens, as he climbs a mountain of trials, storms, and doubt, only to discover a truth so profound it will change not just his life, but yours as well. The sun sank slowly behind the hills, casting long golden shadows over the lush grass and olive trees. A gentle breeze carried the scent of wildflowers, and the occasional chirp of crickets filled the tranquil air. The disciples arrived one by one, their robes dusty from the day's journey, their expressions eager yet contemplative. This was a moment they had come to treasure, a time to sit at the feet of their teacher, whose words seemed to unveil the mysteries of life and eternity. Jesus stood on the hilltop, his silhouette bathed in the amber glow of the setting sun. His gaze stretched toward the horizon as if he could see beyond the physical world into realms unseen. His demeanor was calm, yet his disciples sensed an unspoken gravity in the air. John, ever intuitive, stepped closer, his voice soft but filled with curiosity. "Rabbi," he said, "you look as though you carry a great thought. What wisdom will you share with us tonight?" Jesus turned, his face radiant with a gentle smile that seemed to hold the weight of eternity yet radiated peace. "Come," he said, motioning for them to gather. "Sit with me and I will tell you a story that holds the secret to weathering life's storms and finding the path to the divine." The disciples obeyed, forming a circle around him. Peter adjusted his cloak, his eyes alight with anticipation, while Mary Magdalene settled gracefully beside him, her hands folded in quiet reverence. Even Thomas, who often bore a shadow of doubt in his heart, leaned forward with interest. Jesus took his place on a smooth rock at the center, his presence commanding yet humble, and began to speak in the tone that only he could, a tone that seemed to resonate with the soul. Far away, in a small village nestled at the foot of a towering mountain, there lived a young shepherd named Aaron. His life was simple, marked by days spent tending sheep on the grassy plains and nights under the vast canopy of stars. Yet, within him burned a restlessness, a yearning for something greater. Every evening, as the village grew quiet and the mountain loomed in shadow, Aaron would sit alone and gaze at its peak, hidden in the clouds. The elders had told tales of a treasure at the summit, a treasure not of gold or silver but of light and divine presence. Aaron often wondered aloud, why does no one climb the mountain? If the treasure is so wondrous, why does it remain unclaimed? His father, a wise and weathered man with silver in his hair, would chuckle softly. "Because, my son, the mountain is not just a challenge of the body but of the soul. It is said that the journey reveals who you truly are, and many are unprepared to face themselves." These words only fueled Aaron's desire. One night, as he lay under the stars, he dreamed of the mountain. In his dream, the summit glowed with a radiant light, and a voice called to him, "Come, Aaron. The treasure awaits." He awoke with a start, his heart racing. That very morning he decided he would be the one to climb the mountain no matter the cost. Aaron's preparations were humble but heartfelt. He packed a small satchel with bread, a flask of water, and a sturdy rope that he tied around his waist, as his father had taught him during their shepherding days. The villagers gathered to see him off, their faces a mixture of admiration and skepticism. Some whispered among themselves, "He's young and foolish. He'll be back by nightfall." Others, especially the elders, prayed silently for his safety, knowing the perilous path he had chosen. The base of the mountain was lush and green, its paths winding through meadows filled with wildflowers and the soft murmur of streams. As Aaron climbed, the familiar sounds of the village faded, replaced by the calls of distant birds and the rustle of leaves in the wind. The rope tied around his waist became his constant companion, a reminder of the strength and security he carried with him. But as the terrain grew steeper, the lush greenery gave way to barren rocks and jagged cliffs. Aaron's muscles ached, and the sun burned hot overhead. Doubts began to creep into his mind. Why am I doing this? What if the treasure is just a tale told by the elders to inspire fools like me? He paused, gripping the rope tightly, and a strange sense of comfort washed over him. The rope, though ordinary in appearance, seemed to hum with an unseen strength, urging him forward. On the third day of his climb, Aaron encountered a figure sitting on a boulder by the side of the path. The man was old, his skin weathered by time and his clothes tattered, yet his eyes burned with an intensity that belied his frail appearance. Aaron approached cautiously, unsure whether to greet him or pass by in silence. Before he could decide, the old man spoke. "Young man," the stranger said, his voice rough but commanding, "why do you climb this cursed mountain?" Aaron hesitated, taken aback by the question. "I climb to reach the summit, where the treasure of light awaits. It is said to be the place where the divine reveals itself." The old man laughed, a sound both bitter and amused. "Many have sought it. Few have returned. And those who did, they came back empty-handed." Aaron's resolve faltered, his heart sinking. "Why then should I continue? If the treasure is unreachable, what is the point of this journey?" The old man's expression softened, and he leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Because the treasure is not what you expect. But only those who reach the summit can understand its true nature." Without another word, he stood and disappeared into the rocky landscape, leaving Aaron more determined than ever to discover the truth. Aaron's journey took a turn for the worse as he ascended into the higher reaches of the mountain. The air grew colder, and dark clouds gathered overhead, swallowing the sunlight and casting the landscape into shadow. The first drops of rain fell softly, but soon they turned into a torrential downpour. The wind howled like a wild beast, tugging at Aaron's clothes and threatening to tear him from the narrow path. Then it happened. A sudden gust of wind sent him tumbling, and he slipped, his feet scrambling for purchase on the slick rocks. He cried out as his body dangled precariously over a steep precipice, held only by the rope tied around his waist. Terror gripped him, and tears blurred his vision as he shouted into the storm, "Why is this happening? If the treasure is real, why must the journey be so hard?" For a moment, there was only the roar of the wind. Then through the chaos, a voice broke through, a voice soft yet powerful, filled with an authority that silenced his fears. "Do not let go, Aaron. The rope is your faith. It will not prevent the storm, but it will carry you through it. Trust and you will reach the summit." Aaron's heart pounded as he clung to the rope with all his strength. Slowly, painstakingly, he pulled himself back onto solid ground. The storm began to subside, and with a renewed sense of purpose, he continued his ascent. The story continues with larger paragraphs in chapters 6 to 10 as Aaron's journey, the transformation of the village, and Jesus' profound teachings unfold. Let me know if you'd like me to complete the expanded chapters or refine further details. Here's the continuation of The Rope of Faith, expanded further into detailed chapters with immersive settings, inner thoughts, and subplots. While Aaron faced the treacherous mountain, life in the village carried on, though his absence left a strange void. His father, Elias, a man of wisdom but burdened by age, sat by the hearth each night, his thoughts consumed by his son's perilous journey. "He's strong," Elias muttered as if convincing himself. "He'll make it. He must." His wife, Miriam, placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Elias, we raised him to be brave, to trust not only his strength but also his faith. Do not let your doubts weigh heavier than your prayers." Elias sighed, his weathered hands gripping the armrest of his chair. "It's not doubt, Miriam. It's fear. The mountain has taken so many good men, strong men. I should have stopped him." Miriam knelt beside him, her gaze firm yet tender. Aaron's journey is not just for him. It's for us, for the village, for everyone who has grown too afraid to dream of something greater. We must have faith just as he does. Meanwhile, the villagers spoke of Aaron with a mix of admiration and skepticism. Children whispered about the young shepherd climbing the mountain, imagining him battling giants and dragons. The elders shared their own tales of failed attempts to reach the summit, their voices tinged with regret. Yet, deep down, the villagers felt something stirring, a quiet hope that perhaps, just perhaps, Aaron might succeed where others had faltered. After weeks of climbing, enduring hunger, fatigue, and storms, Aaron finally approached the summit. The air was thin and each step felt heavier than the last. Yet, as he crested the final ridge, a breathtaking sight unfolded before him. The peak was bathed in a radiant light that seemed to emanate from the very heavens. It was not a harsh or blinding light but a warm, enveloping glow that filled him with a profound sense of peace. Aaron dropped to his knees, overcome by emotion. He felt as though he were standing in the presence of something far greater than himself, something divine. Tears streamed down his face as the voice returned, gentle and loving, yet carrying the weight of eternity. You have endured, Aaron. The treasure you seek is not of gold or silver, nor is it something you can hold. It is the understanding that the journey, with all its trials and triumphs, was preparing you for this moment. The rope of faith connected you to me, and through it, you have found what your heart truly sought. Aaron's heart swelled with gratitude. He understood now that the treasure was not a destination but a transformation, the growth of his faith, the strengthening of his spirit, and the realization that he was never alone. Aaron descended the mountain with a renewed sense of purpose, his steps lighter despite the physical toll of his journey. When he returned to the village, the people gathered to greet him. Their initial surprise turned to awe as they saw the change in him. His eyes seemed to hold a light that was not of this world, and his presence exuded a calm strength that silenced even the most skeptical among them. Elias ran to embrace his son, his voice breaking with emotion. You've returned, my boy. Praise be to God. Aaron held his father tightly, his voice steady yet filled with reverence. Father, the treasure is real, but it is not what we thought. It is not something to be held or seen. It is the faith that carries us through the journey, the strength that sustains us when we feel like letting go. That evening, the villagers gathered around a fire as Aaron shared his story. He spoke not only of the hardships he had faced but also of the peace and understanding he had found. His words inspired many, planting seeds of courage and faith in hearts that had long grown cold. As Jesus finished his story, the disciples sat in thoughtful silence, each processing the profound truths they had just heard. Peter, always the first to speak, broke the quiet. Master, is Aaron's rope like the faith we have in you? Is it what keeps us connected to the Father? Jesus nodded, his expression both tender and resolute. Yes, Peter. The rope is faith, a lifeline that binds you to the Father's love. It will not prevent the storms of life, but it will give you the strength to endure them. Even when you cannot see the end of the rope, trust that it is anchored in heaven. Mary Magdalene's voice, soft yet resolute, added, And the summit, Rabbi, is it like the kingdom of heaven? Jesus smiled. Indeed, Mary. But remember, the kingdom is not just a place to reach. It is a transformation of the heart, a light that begins within you and grows as you trust in the Father's plan. Thomas, who often wrestled with doubt, looked at Jesus with uncharacteristic vulnerability. But, Master, what if the storms are too strong? What if we let go? Jesus turned to Thomas, his gaze steady and filled with compassion. Thomas, even if your grip falters, the rope does not. The Father's love is unyielding. It is not your strength that holds the rope, it is His. Trust in that, and you will never be lost. As the disciples prepared to leave the hillside, The story of Aaron and the rope of faith burned brightly in their hearts. Each carried the lesson in their own way, Peter with his bold determination, Mary with her quiet devotion, and Thomas with a newfound glimmer of hope. They knew the storms of life would come, but they also knew they were never alone. That night, as the stars filled the sky, Jesus looked upward, his heart full of love for his disciples and all who would one day hear his words. The rope of faith, he whispered, is the bond between earth and heaven, between the seen and the unseen, between man and God. Hold tight, and you will find the strength to climb any mountain. The disciples walked down the hill together, their footsteps illuminated by the moonlight. Their hearts were light, their spirits renewed, and their faith anchored in the teachings of their Master. And as they traveled the path ahead, they carried the rope of faith with them, a lifeline that would guide them through every trial, every triumph, and every storm. This is end of the story. Comment Amen if you believe in Jesus' blessings. Please like this video and subscribe this channel for more Jesus story like this. May the God watch over you.